Right. Good morning once again. Okay, so I think we concluded the control structure in our last class, right? And I gave us an assignment. What was the assignment again? You should research more on what? Okay, so let's look at, we are starting a new topic, and the topic is JavaScript function. JavaScript function. So let me create a different file for that as well. Let's say functions dot js introduction to JavaScript function. Introduction to JavaScript function. So let's start by knowing the definition. How do we define functions? Generally in programming. But in this context, let's look at this, let's look at it from JavaScript's perspective. A JavaScript function is a block of code. I hope you are writing. Definition. A JavaScript function is a block of code that can be executed. It's a block of code that can be executed. A block of code that can be executed. Block of code that can be executed. Multiple times. Underline the word multiple times, because that is one of the advantage of working with functions. You can use them multiple times. They are reusable. The JavaScript function is a block of code that can be executed multiple times from different parts of your program. From different parts of your program. From different parts of your program. Command allowing you to reuse code. That is the key advantage. Allowing you to reuse code and simplify your programming tasks. So it makes your programming tasks easier, because and simplify your programming tasks. Task. Tasks. So let me just break it down, or let me summarize it in one of the simplest way. Alternatively, we can define JS function as grouping data type. As grouping what? Data type. So in other words, they are used to group what? Codes. So they can serve as a container that could be used to hold so many what? Scripts in a block. In a block. So just like I mentioned the other time when we were still on the control structure, it is impossible for you to build apps without involving what? Function. So you can create a function to do something somewhere, maybe at line 2. And then as you continue with your coding, maybe at line 100, you can reuse that function that you created in line what? 2, without you having to write it from scratch again. So that is one of the main reasons why you see programmers adopting the function concepts, because they are reusable. So I'm going to be taking us through different categories of functions. Different categories of functions. So the first one is function declaration and function expression. Let's start with that. How do we declare function? And what is function expression? So these are technical terms you need to be familiar with. What do we mean by function declaration? So I'm going to start with under this topic where I said function declaration versus, function declaration versus function expression, instead of the way you wrote it before. I just put versus what? Function what? Expression. So I just want us to know the difference between when a function is declared and when we talk about an expression of a function. Note under this topic, I want to start with subheading function declaration. Just like we are treating two topics at the same time, function, but we are comparing them. We want to know the differences. So we are starting with function declaration. Under function declaration, you can write, this is the standard way of defining a function. I am explaining function declaration. This is the standard way of defining a function. The standard way of defining a function. And the syntax is, this is the standard way of defining what? A function. And the syntax is A, declaring the function keyword. A, declaring the function what? Keyword. So indirectly, I am giving us information about the function structure, just like the way I explain a variable, right? I told us that variable has how many parts? 3 parts, right? The naming part, the assignment part, and what? The value. So we need to also understand, if I am to declare, if I'm to write a function, if I'm to declare a function, what is the standard? How am I expected to write it? I said you start with what? The function what? Keyword. B, on 2, give it a name or followed by the function name. So after you have defined the function keyword, followed by the function what? Name. Followed by the function name. Are we together? Followed by what? The function name. Okay. Now, after that, and write your code inside the curly brackets. So you write this and write your code inside the curly what? Brackets. So you write this and quote it. So if we look at the structure of the function, how many parts makes up a function? How many parts makes up a structure? How many parts? 3, right? We have what? The function keyword, followed by what? The function what? Name, followed by what? The code block, right? And the code block is what is represented with what? This curly what? Bracket. Whatever you write inside it. That curly bracket is just like the the binder, what is holding, what is grouping your scripts. That is why I told us last time that we use function to group what? Codes. So let's quickly take a task here. Let's look at a simple task that we can answer with JavaScript what? Function. So example, we want to, rewrite all this, create a JS function that says, welcome to Digitech Z Hub. So we want to create a function that when somebody log into our web page, they will get this message either as a pop-up message or to display on the browser's what? Body. Digitals. You can put anything, welcome to any name. Okay, now it's just for us to practice how to write a function. So this is external what? JavaScript, right? So remember that I told us that if you are working with external, we need to also have what? The HTML what? File for us to output, right? The result with the HTML element. So I will create HTML version of it, which is functions dot what? HTML. Okay. Then I will activate my HTML default file. And then, of course, I'll create the elements we use to output the JavaScript what? Actions. So I'll use p tag element with an ID, let's say demo, to output, to render the function. Now, since we want to go external, remember the principle. We have to what? Link the what? The two files, right? Using scripts with what? Path source. And then slash inside, they reference that file. So which means in this case now, my JavaScript will no longer be written in this what? HTML file. So I have to what? Be writing my JavaScript here for today. So what is a function? And if you are using external, I hope you know that you don't need to open scripts again. Yeah. Because you are writing directly in JavaScript what? So file. So we want to create a function that outputs either on the browser body or display it as a pop-up message, welcome to what? Digital Z Hub. Okay, so from the structure or the declaration syntax I gave us, I say you start with what? The function what? Keyword. So there's a keyword called what? Function, like this. When we say keyword, it means we are talking about what? Input, right? Input what? Command. So this has already been acknowledged within JavaScript, which is used to initiate function, just like the way we have keyword for initiating variables. Do we still remember them? Cost, right? Let, var, right? They are inbuilt what? Keywords. So this is constant when you are working with function. You have to start by this. Then I said followed by what? The name of what? The function, right? So the name of the function, let's say what? Greet. For example, let's say what? Greet or greeting. Or let's say welcome, since it's welcoming message, let's say welcome. That is the name of the function. Then being a function, it must carry what? Parentheses, bracket, like this. Now, before you can now declare what? The block, the code block. Are we getting it now? So this is the typical structure of what? A function. So have we identified those three element or property or section that makes up function? This is a keyword. Why this is the name? The name you are using must not be a keyword. All right? Must not be a keyword. Now, in this case, we are starting, remember that we are dealing with what? Function declaration. And when you declare function, we have function with what? That receive inputs. We have function that does not receive inputs. Whatever you put in this empty bracket now is called what? The function what? Input. We'll come to that. We are advancing gradually. But now this function has no input. So when you come here, what do we want them to see? Remember what we want to display on our page, which is what? Welcome to what? Digital Z Hub, right? So we will now recognize it here. Now remember any of those JavaScript output method. Alert is there, right? Console.log is there. Document. Right? Now, you now determine which of them do you want to, what exactly do you want the function to display? You capture it with that output method. So in this case, let's use what, since we created an element in what? In HTML, right? Which is what? With an ID what? Demo. That is, we want to from JavaScript, call the whole of this and store it in what? HTML what? Property in JavaScript, and then use it to what? To display a value. So the value will be sent from JavaScript to this what? Content part of your HTML. That is the reason why we left it what? Blank. Because the content will be created in what? JavaScript. So now that we have acknowledged that, let's quickly go back to our JavaScript file. So from here, I will say document dot what? Dot get element by ID, and then I will reference the ID. What is the ID? Demo, right? The ID is what? Demo. So what exactly do we want now? I can't stop here because I have not invoked the HTML element. Look up for a second. What's this? If I stop here, there will be some instances as we continue, probably after this topic, where I'll be stopping here, where I will not need to be putting what? Dot inner what? HTML. So if you stop here, what you have said now is that you have only identified the elements that will be used to output what? The content. But you have not acknowledged the particular property in this method that hold or store the HTML elements that the value will be what? Inserted into. So that is why we have to what? Put what? Inner HTML. Inner HTML then equals to what? We will now acknowledge this as a string because we have not stored this in what? Any variable that we can reference. So we have to pass it to what? To this. So welcome to what? Welcome to Digital Z Hub. Then of course we have to end our code with what? Semicolon. So in case you are wondering, what's with the communication? What will the communication be? What we are simply saying is this. Look up. What we are simply saying is that this particular test now, are we together? This particular test will be done or inserted in this file. This is where it's coming. That is why you left it empty here. That is, from there, it will be what? Added here. Remember that you have selected the whole of this element with what? That by ID, them, right? And then it will just what? Add the content to this content section. So let's quickly go and display it and see if we will get that message. There is something that we have not done, but let's see first so that you know that when you create function, you have to call them. Are you with me? So write it down. I just want us to know whether it will display it without calling it so that we know when next we write code or we are working with function and we experience this, we will know where the error is coming from. So you can see that the document has been rendered, but I can't see what welcome to Digital Z Hub. Why? Because look up here. Notes. Functions are to be called before outputting before outputting their results. JavaScript. So there are some functions that can be invoke, but primarily functions are meant to be called. Now, a typical example is that you can have a child in a room. If you don't tell that child to go and get you water, that child will be in that same room, right? But the child can actually get you water. But you need to call that child, come, go and get me water. So what has happened is that the code exists. The code is running, but there is need for us to call it before it works. Are you with me? So we need to call it before it works. Now, to call your JavaScript function, you call it outside the declaration block. Please take note of that. You don't call your function inside. You call it outside. Outside the declaration. That is where you call the function. And you call the function with the exact name. So in other words, this is what I will use to call the function. This is only what I will be taking out here. So I will just say welcome is the name of my function. I will just call it like this and then end the code officially. So when you write function, you must call it outside the declaration block. If I go to the front end now, you can see that it has outputted. For that time that we have not called it, it was there, but no reaction. Is it understood? Eh? Hope the yes is strong, because I managed to hear that yes. Please ask your question because we are going complex gradually now. Is it here from here? What we did is just to call the function. I said that when functions are created in JavaScript, primarily they are to be called, right? And they are to be called outside the declaration block. Don't call, for example, now you don't write this inside the calling bracket. You call it outside, which means that the function has been executed before calling it out. Is the protocol, is the principle. These are the things you need to know that will make you to say, I can speak JavaScript function. That is, you understand the way the function works. If I call this function multiple times, remember I told us that function can be reused, right? Right? So if I copy here now, if I paste it here, it will print that text. Let's refresh. Okay, I think this is not the scenario that I'm referring to. Let's just do this one first. So let me give us time. Everybody you can create your function. You can give it different tasks, different thing to do. So let's quickly achieve that before I proceed. Then notes, please, let's proceed. Notes, you can do that after the class. Notes, I think I've given us something like that. You can call this function before, afterwards, defining it. Okay, so no, that is not, I think I've summarized that note before, where I said you have to call the function, right? Good, okay, so I'll take care of that. So let's look at function expression. That one is what? Remember that we are comparing function declaration and function expression. So let's quickly look at function expression. Right. In function expression, the function is stored inside a variable. So once you see that a function is stored in a variable, there is no longer what? Function declaration. It becomes what? Function expression. The function is stored inside a variable. It can be anonymous. That is what? No name. It can be anonymous. That is no name. Or named. So let's quickly look at the example of what we can refer to as what? Function expression. What we can refer to as what? Function expression. So here, the concept is that if you look at this one now, this one is not stored in any variable, right? You just declare it. So most time, most programmers use what? Function expression, because when they want to call the entire function, they will just call the name of the variable. That is what the whole of the function has been what? Stored inside what? The variable. So it's more flexible to reuse. So what is the example? Let's look at the example here. Let's take the example of this type of function. Now, I believe we all know what is called costs. I don't want to use the word we have used before. These are keywords for initiating what? Variables, right? Let, cost, and what again? Var. Now, when you use var, it means that what? The value you are storing inside that variable varies. But when you use cost, it means what? Constant. You can't change it, just like value of pi, which is always what? 3.14 is constant. So you must know when to use cost. If you want to store a value that will be constant all through your programming, you use cost as the what? The keyword. If you know that is a value that can change as you continue with your coding, then use what? Var or let. So cost, let's say this time around, what we want to output is what? Okay, let's say the same thing. Let's say cost greets us. That is the name of the variable now. Equals to the function, the keyword function. So you can see that here now, the name of the function compared to the previous syntax has been silent because we have replaced with what? The variable now. Now your declaration block comes in. And then what exactly do you want it to do? Let's say this time around, we want to, let's still use it. Let's say we want to alert. We want to alert a message. Thank you for visiting this site. So I will write what? Alert. You know, if I'm using alert, this does not require what? Displaying it with what? Any of the HTML what? Element. So thank you for visiting this site. Thank you for visiting this site. So remember that what? We must come outside. Now, in this case now, we must come outside and do what? And call the name of the function, right? So how do we call it? Before we call it, we have to close this. We have to end this. So how do we call it? What is the name of the function you are calling here? Who can tell us what we are going to call here? What is the equivalent to the name of the function here? Good. So greet us. Greet us. Then you have to put it in the, sorry, you have to add the function bracket. So if I go back to my front end now and run it, You can see that what? It has alerted what? Thank you for what? Visiting this website. So you can create something like this as soon as somebody enter the website with your content. There should be a pop-up message. You can use function to create a kind of notification. Maybe there is a promo, you understand? If there's a promo that is going on, so as soon as somebody is logging into the website, they should get that update. And then once they click on what? Okay, then the message what? It takes them to the main content. The same thing if you want to display it on the browser body, you know the display method to use now. You use the same words, maybe you can still use inner HTML, which is this one, or you use a document dot what writes. So let's also apply quickly, everybody. Let's quickly look at parameters and return value functions. Right, parameters and return value function. This is another type of function. Parameter and return values function. Parameter and return value function. Right, parameters and value and return value function can take inputs, which are called in the bracket, right, called parameter. So what we are using the word input to represent here means what? Parameter. And send back output using return. And send back output using return. And send back output using what? Return. Using return. So let's quickly look at the example. Let's take some examples so that you can clearly differentiate them. So let's create create JS function that takes in input and return value. And return value. So let's start with the function keyword, function. So here we want to create a kind of calculator that when we give it two numbers, it will add them together, or two numbers, it will multiply them together, or two numbers, it will divide them to perform division operation. So function, so let's say add number. So that add number is what? The function what? Name, right? Is the function name. Now, the function name. If you check the previous function, we are not putting anything inside this what? Function what? Bracket, right? Because those ones are function without what? Input. So in other words, the display method itself, that is why when we were displaying it with any of those methods, we were supplying what we want to see. But now we want to create like the best way to understand this, just assume that what? These are variables. So, remember that you can declare variable before you add value into them, right? You can say let A, B, C, D, right? Semicolon. Then you now say where A is. So I just want us to understand the logic. That's what is happening here. So this is just like, as you are creating the function, you are automatically creating what? 2 empty or 1 empty container. Now, it means that somehow, somewhere, you are expected to send in value into what? This empty container. So any function that have anything inside the bracket is a function with what? Parameter. And this parameter, they are called what? Input. So we can have it for 1 input, 2 input. Right now is what? 2 input. Now, when you come down, we talk about return. Now, if you want to display it, let's use a console.log. Because sometimes when you are verifying all this, the best method to use is console.log. Console.log. Now, console.log, I will now put A plus what? B. This is what we determine. Once I give 2 values, it means that what? The first value is to be assigned to what? A, right? And then because I am adding an operator, we all know what is called operator now. That plus means that what? A calculation will was performed, right? With the 2 values you are going to give. So now I will end it here like this. Now I will now come outside. Remember that is a function. You have to call it. Now to call that function, what will you call? Add. Now remember that at this point here, you have not submitted the values that will be added together. So now logically, let me explain this. So we are going a bit logical. You see, from backyard, you are now indirectly sending value here. Just what is going to happen now. This is what is happening at the background. Initially, when you declare this variable, you declare them what? As empty. Now, you now came inside here and try to do as if you want to perform calculation, even when they have not received what. So just like you have created a formula down. Now, once the value is given here, then to take it and add it here, the first one, the second one here, then this display method what? We pick the value from here. So this one we pick the value from here. This one we pick the value. But at first, the value must be sent to them. Did you understand it? Is it clear? Now, I will now come here now. What are the values I want to add? What are the values? So if I put 20 here now and I put comma 30, who can tell us the 20 is for what? It's for A, right? Good. Now let's go there now. You see that what? We are displaying with what? Console.log. Console.log does not display on the browser interface. You have to go to the what? Good. So let's go there and check for our result. Expect. So from expect, I will just go to console. I should get the answer there. Where is the answer? Are we not in console? I'm expected to get the answer here. Okay, we have not. Yeah, no, you see, JavaScript is because of that semicolon, we will not close the code. You can see it. So little things. If you were to be Python now, Python will bring out the message and tell you where it is. This one just kept quiet, no error line, but something is not right. So what has it done now? It has added what? 20 and what? 50, right? So for any reason, if I change this operator to times, who can tell us what will happen? If I change this to times, right? And I go back and I run, what is it saying? There is an error here, so let's run it again. Let's see whether it will reinitialize it. Let's expect again so I can run that file. Add what? The AB is what? Not defined. Let me see. AB is not defined. AB is not defined. You want to work, Abby? Like that, Abby? So it's browser issue. I think let me run my HTML file again and see. Here is the HTML file here. Let me run it again. Okay. All right, so perfect. So I just have to refresh my HTML. So what is the difference between this type of function and this one? What's the difference? The difference between this one. This one is what? Function without what? Input. They are called what? Function without input. So in other words, we have what? Function. Now, where the function does not have input, you can see the syntax. We supply the what? The content directly. So let us also confirm that, everybody. For those that have not confirmed, let me. So let's look at, remember we are looking at what? Function with what? Parameter and what? Return value. So this one is what? Parameter. Let's look at for return value. So that is going to be example 2. But this time around, we are using return as a keyword to display the value. Example 2 with return. So function name. So we are still using the same. Let's say add number. Let's say add num, just to differentiate it from the first one. And then it's also receiving 2 inputs, A and B. Declare your function block. Now you now use what? Return A plus what? Plus B. So you can see this is one. This return is a keyword. Now, let's see what we can do with this. So I will now come outside and say, here I'm creating the task that I want to perform with those 2 words, inputs, that the return will return to me. So let's say we are creating a variable, let sum. Let's say I want to do some summation. Let sum is equals to, add what? Num. Then what are the values that will be sent to the input? Let's say 30 and 80. Okay, 30 and 80. Now, to display it, let me use document dot get elements by ID. Then I have to go back to my HTML file to create an element with an ID. So let me create this ID demo2. Demo2. Go back to my JavaScript file. Reference the demo2. So what exactly do I want to output? So dot what? Inner HTML equals to. So what I want to output is what? The sum of A and B. A and B is sum A and B is, just come here, add a comma, then call what? The variable name, which is, what is the variable name? We say let sum. That is what? The calculation has happened here, and the answer is stored where? Sum, right? So what we have to display is what? The sum. So I'll put sum here. Sum. and then before I end my code. Okay, so if I go to the front end and see, let me leave here, we should be able to see. Still rolling. So just execute your own. Let me see if I can off. Task loaded or is still loading. Okay, so the sum of A and B is, so I'm waiting for the results. Also want to capture it. Okay, plus. Let me go and run it again. I hope that is it. Let me run again. Is my syntax different from your own? But I've already commented those on off. Look at this. I don't think they are still there. I mean, I've commented them off where I used them before. So it's browser issue. Even the command is supposed to work. You try command, when you put plus, put command there and run it. Okay, you tried it, have you? Or someone else should try it. Let's go. But the answer is not there. Without the, that's with comma, have you? Okay. So mine should be browser. I don't think, let me see if I have to change the parameter. Which one? This is a variable that I created now. Are they different from the way I declared it? That is not a issue. If the name you use, if it's exactly the same thing, whether it's a camel case or not. Even I use camel case here, and here now I'm not using different case. In as much as the same thing that it could be caused by browser anyway. Some browser can get confused. Once you restart the app, it will work. Since somebody has confirmed it with the same syntax, it's not because of camel case. Can even be a single word. So let me try. Let me still check again. So what I will do is that add number. Yeah. Oh, this one, Abby. Oh, it's true. It's part of the one I tried to remove, Abby. Let me see. Good. So all right. So that is how to, so your class tags, so perform another one, cite different scenario, create one for return, then create one for parameter. Let it be different from what you will have done so far. Just develop your own yourself. let's look at the last type, which is arrow functions. Right, that is number 2 type. Number 3 rather. Arrow functions. Arrow function. Arrow function. Let's just end with this. Then you go and do more research with arrow function. Right, arrow function gives you a shorter and cleaner way to write functions. Arrow function gives you a shorter and cleaner way to write functions. So let's look at the example 1. Example 1, the costs. Let's say we want to perform multiplication, multiply, cost, multiply. Or let's just say cost bricks equals to then outside equals to, and then this. So this symbol means what? Arrow function. So most programming language these days use what? Arrow what? Function. It reduces the volume of the code. So I can say, okay, console, just to display it, console.log console.log output, we are back. Output, we are back. So the same thing, to call the function, you quickly go to the next line and call the name of the function, which is what? Greet. So let's run it and then inspect. Go to console. You can see it. So you can see that it's shorter and it's cleaner, just for you to understand the syntax. So this particular stuff you are seeing here is like a function without the name, just like the way we have learned it. So let me just take one more example for it to sync very well, for say using arrow function concept. Example 2. So let's say we also have constants, mods, multiply equals to, then equals to, so what we want to, this is for the input now. We can just say x times y times y, then console.log then call the name of the the variable multiply. That's the name of the function now. Then supply. This is using the input method now. Then supply the value, let's say 9 and 10. So we nested the function name inside the output method. So this we multiply the two numbers together. Let me run the HTML again to see. Or I comment off some of those ones first. Specs. So let's check at multiply. Let's see. It's a x is not what? It's not defined. So let's go to the code. Here is the s that is not defined. The s is not defined. Okay. Yes. So we made mistake. So we are supposed to put s in the function bracket first. The input. We only supply the return value. So just for us to that. Okay, let's wait for the lights to come up so that we can see.